Hey, Falcon families! It's Mr. Allen here with another adventure in education. Today's lesson is a math lesson, so let's dive right in. We're going to start today's math lesson with some mental math. It says, is the unknown value 5 or 10? So the answer is either going to be 5 or 10. Remember, these are quick facts, so ready? Here we go. 25 minus question mark equals 15. The answer is 10. Question mark plus 15 equals 20. You should have guessed 5 there. 5. Let's move on to a little bit harder ones. Remember, your answers are either 5 or 10, so here we go. 10 plus 20 plus question mark equals 40. The answer there is 10. You should have said 10 plus 20 is 30, and 40 minus 30 is 10. How about this one? 5 equals, in parentheses, 5 plus 5 minus question mark. And the answer there is 5. 5 plus 5 is 10. 10 minus what equals 5? Well, that's 10 minus 5 is 5. Question mark equals 2 times 3 in parentheses plus 4. The answer there is 10. You should have done 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 4 is 10. The last one. Question mark minus, in parentheses, 4 times 2 equals 2. And the answer there is 10. 4 times 2 is 8. And then you have to think, what minus 8 is equal to 2? The answer is 10. On this screen, you see our math message for today. Our math message says, Julie is solving the number story below. Mrs. Burns buys 4 packs of colored markers. There are 5 markers in each pack. She gives some markers away, and in the end, she ends up with 8 markers herself. How many markers did she give away? To help, Julie drew the diagram shown on the page. She wrote the letter M to represent the number of markers given away in the story. Let's take a little closer look at what Judy did to solve this problem. Let's start with looking at first this question here. Judy wrote 4 times 5 in the start box. What does this represent? Well, 4 times 5 represents how many markers Miss Burns starts with. Remember, she bought 4 packs of markers that had 5 markers in each pack. So we have to first look at how many she had total to start with. Next, why do you think she put 4 times 5 in parentheses? Well, from previous lessons that you've learned, you should think that that is what needs to be done first. That's also why it's in the start. And finally, we're going to look at why Judy wrote 8 in the end box. What does that number represent? Ah, yes, 8 is how many she had left over at the end. If you remember, it said that she had 8 markers left at the end. Let's look a little closer. What change took place? Well, if you remember, Miss Burns gave away some markers in the problem. So that's the change that took place. Is this change to more or change to less? And how do you know? Well, if Miss Burns is giving away markers, then we know that it is changing to a less number. Because when you give something away, you start out with a bigger number, and then you take away some. And finally here we have, how did Judy represent what she needs to find out? Well, here we see that she put an M. M for markers. Because she gave away markers, they put the M to represent that change. So how many markers did Miss Burns give away? Well, now we have to start using our mathematical equations. So we start out with 4 times 5. We give away some markers and end with 8. So we are going to use what's called a start, change, end model. As you see, I have one right here. Okay, so we started with, in parentheses, 4 times 5. There's my 4. There's my 5. 4 times 5. We changed was minus m. And we ended up having 8 left. Well, knowing my facts, I know 4 times 5 is 20. So now we have 20 minus something equals 8. Now, I could either start with the 8 and count up until I get to 20, or I could take 20 and subtract the 8 to find the answer. My answer here would be 12. 12 plus 8 is equal to 20. So the method we just used was a start, change, end. But that's not the only method we could use. We're also going to be using in this lesson what is called total part part. Total part part is another one that we will use, and I usually use this one if I am multiplying, and I will use this one if I'm adding or subtracting. There is another one that we use in math, but we will not be using this one today, and that is the comprehension one. That's quantity, quantity, and then the difference. Our number story here says Beckett brought 3 boxes of toy cars. Each box contained 10 cars. Beckett's friend gave him more cars, so he now has 35 cars. How many toy cars did his friend give him? We are going to use our Rudicy thought process, and we've already read it once, but we're going to reread, and this time we're going to underline the important information. Beckett bought 3 boxes of toy cars. That's going to be useful later. Each box contained 10 cars. That seems very important as well. Beckett's friend gave him more cars. So we know there's been a change here. His friend gave him some cars, but we don't know how many yet. He now has 35 cars. That's important to know how many he ends up with. And finally, we have how many toy cars did his friend give him? That's the question. That's the meat of what we need to get done. So we're going to put that into our start, change, finish again. So in the start, we said that he had 3 boxes of toy cars. So we're going to write our 3. And then he had 10 in each box. So we need to start out with the equation 3 times 10. Now we know that his friend gave him some cars, but we just don't know how many yet. So I'm going to put a question mark there. And we ended with 35 cars. Now, I know 3 times 10 is 30. So I could put that here. 30 plus something now equals 35. And I know you guys are smart. So 30 plus 5 is 35. So my answer is 5 more cars. Move on to our next problem. There are 4 baskets. Each basket has 2 red apples and 2 green apples. How many apples are there in all? Once again, let's go through and underline. There are 4 baskets. That could be important. Each basket had 2 red apples and 3 green apples. Now the color here does not matter, just knowing that we need 2 of one kind and 3 of another. And finally, we have our important question here. How many apples are there in all? Now for this one, I am going to use my part total. My graph here looks like this. So the first thing we're going to say is how many apples are in each basket. So I'm going to come over here, and I know that there was 2 of one kind, and then there was 3 of another. And we could put those in parentheses to tell us that we did those first, but I know that that's what we need to do first, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. The next part, we need to know how many baskets there were. Well, looking back at our problem, I know that we had 4 baskets. 4 baskets. And then we do not know the total yet, so I could put my question mark up here. So 2 plus 3 is 5. Now remember that this line here, I can replace that line with our multiplication sign. So now I'm looking at the problem 5 times 4. Well, I know my 5 facts, as should you. So 5 times 4 is 20. So my answer should be 20 apples. 20 apples. On to the next question. Linda had $45 in her bank account. Each week for 4 weeks, she deposited $10 she earned from doing her chores. How much money does she have now? Let's go back through and highlight those important items again. She had $45 in her bank account, so she started off with that $45, and every week for 4 weeks, she deposited or put in $10 from doing those chores. And finally, we want to know how much money does she have now? Now, is this a part total, or is this a start, change, end? For this one, I'm going to choose to do the start, change, end. We started off with $45. The change happened when, for 4 weeks, she put in $10. So for each of those 4 weeks, she put in $10. So we multiply 4 times 10 to find that. And then the end is what we don't know. We don't know how much money she has at the end. That's what the question was asking us. So I start off here going 4 times 10. 4 groups of 10 gives me 40. So now my new problem is 45 plus, because she was adding those, 45 plus 40 equals what? Well, 45 plus 40 equals 85. I know that because 5 plus 0 is 5. 4 plus 4 is 8. So my answer here is $85. That's how much she has at the end. Let's look at another one here. In this one, Craig buys 3 erasers for 5 cents each. He pays 50 cents. How much change does he receive? Once again, I want to use the start, change, end. We started with 50 cents in this case, because that's how much he gave them. So if he gave them 50 cents, let's write that here in the start. So we started with 50 cents. The change was how much he spent. Well, it said that he spent 5 cents each on the 3 erasers. So 3 times 5. And that will tell us how much he spent. Well, 3 groups of 5 is 15. So I'm going to write that underneath here. And we do not know what he ended with yet. So now I have to go 50 minus 15. I'm going to draw that over here. So that's a little tougher because we have a bottom bigger that we have to borrow. This is what I'm talking about. The bottom number is bigger than the top number, so I have to come over and borrow from the next group. So instead of 5 groups of 10, I now have 4 groups of 10 here. Whoop. And now my group of 10 has to come over here and be added to my ones spot. So now I have 10 minus 5 is 5. 4 minus 1 is 3. So the change that he gets back should be 35 cents. 35 cents. The last one we have in this section says Julian has 3 packages of marbles. Each pack has 5 marbles with 5 stripes and 5 marbles with swirls. How many marbles does Julian have in all? To find this one, I'm going to use the part total. Let's take a look. First, we know that in each pack, there are 5 swirls and 5 stripes. So let's put that in one of the parts. 5 plus 5. And we know that he had 3 packs altogether. And our question is, how many total marbles did he have? Well, 5 plus 5 we know is 10. And once again, we could make this little dotted line to become our multiplication symbol. So we have a new problem. 10 times 3 equals what? Well, 10 groups of 3, I know, is 30. So total, we have 30 marbles. Now we're going to take what we know about our part total and the start, change, end diagrams, and we're going to put them in how we can make them into number models for multiple step problems. So let's look at the first one here. Ronald bought 2 packs of crackers. There are 5 crackers in each pack. He ate some crackers. Now Ronald has 7 crackers. How many crackers did he eat? Let's start with our rudity of underlining, because we've already done the read part. We have 2 packets of crackers with 5 crackers in each. He ate, so we know that we are subtracting some crackers. And now Ronald has 7 crackers. And the question is, how many crackers did he eat? Well, let's pick a letter to replace that question mark that we started with. And in this case, since we're talking about crackers, let's replace it with C. And the C stands for crackers. So now our number model should be 2 packs of crackers with 5 crackers in each one. So we have to multiply. Minus C, which is the crackers that he ate, would equal 7, because that's how many he had left over. So let's use our start, change, finish here to figure. I know that 2 times 5 is 10, so I'm going to write the number 10 here. We don't know the change, but instead of making the question mark, I'm going to write the C there for crackers, and we ended up with 7. Now I could think, if I end with 7 and I started with 10, what was the change? 7 plus 3 is 10, so I know that if I do just the opposite and start with 10, and I take away that 3, I end with 7. So my change is minus 3. Minus 3. So I could come back here after I had shown my work on the other page, and I could write my answer here is 3 crackers. Now my number model with my answer is 2 times 5 minus 3 equals 7. And I could go back and check my answers to make sure 2 times 5 is 10. 10 minus 3 is equal to 7. Let's look at one more. And this one says, Leah bought 3 bags of fruit. Each bag has 4 oranges and 6 apples. How many pieces of fruit did Leah buy altogether? Well, we need to know that there was 3 bags of fruit. We know that each bag has 4 oranges here. And each one has 6 apples. We also need to know that the question is, how many pieces of fruit did she have all together? Well, since we're talking about fruit, it's only fitting that we use the first initial of fruit, which would be F. F would then represent fruit. So our number model with the fruit here, if I'm sitting here thinking, Leah bought 3 bags of fruit, each one has 4 oranges and 6 apples, I need to make sure I know that 3 times 4 plus 6 in parentheses is equal to f. So if I write that, it's going to look something like this. All right, so let's work that out. And for this one, I want to use the part total. So here we have three Here we have three bags, and in each bag we have 4 of one kind plus 6 of another. And we want to know how much total fruit we have altogether. Well, I know 4 plus 6 is 10, so I'm going to write that underneath. So now I have a new problem of 3 times 10. 3 groups of 10 is equal to 30. So we have 30 pieces of fruit. So my answer here is 30 pieces of fruit. My new number model with the answer is 3 times, in parentheses, 4 plus 6, parentheses, equals 30. Great. Well, that does it for today's lesson. And always, remember, you are kind, you are smart, you are important, and you are loved. Have a fabulous day, Falcons.